The $800 Italian leather shoe connected with Amanda's ribs before she could even register the movement. She crashed backward into the ornament display, golden Christmas spheres exploding across the marble floor as her body hit the stand. Metal scraped against her elbow, splitting skin. The entire Gangnam Luxury Mall fell silent. Amanda looked up from where she sprawled among shattered decorations and scattered shopping bags, blood trickling down her arm, staining her simple black dress. Above her stood John, her ex-husband, his designer suit perfectly pressed, his face twisted with the same contempt she remembered from 3 years ago. "Stay down," John snarled, his voice dripping with venom. "That's where trash like you belongs." He had no idea who she was now. No idea that the broken woman he'd abandoned, the one he'd left with $17 and a baby in her belly, the one who'd lost that child to starvation and stress after he'd stolen everything from her, was gone. No idea about the 5-carat diamond hidden beneath her glove, the penthouse she'd woken up in that morning, or the black titanium card in her purse with no spending limit. And John definitely had no idea about the man whose last name was now legally hers. The man whose security team was already moving through the crowd toward them. The man whose phone was vibrating in her purse at this exact moment. Jong Sik, her husband, Seoul's most feared underground king. As Amanda's trembling fingers fumbled for her phone and she heard Jong Sik's deadly calm voice ask, "Are you hurt?" She watched the first flicker of confusion cross John's face. He was looking at the two men in black suits closing in, noticing the way mall security suddenly seemed nervous, seeing something in Amanda's eyes that hadn't been there before. He just kicked the wrong woman, and in approximately 8 minutes, when Jong Sik's motorcade screeched into this mall's parking structure, when the man with tattoos crawling up his neck and death in his eyes walked through those doors, John was going to learn a lesson about consequences that would obliterate his entire existence. But he didn't know it yet. Right now, standing over her with his fists still clenched, he still thought he'd won. Still thought she was nothing. That was about to change. Subscribe to the channel for more Afro-Korean romance stories. Drop a comment telling me what you think is about to happen when Jong Sik arrives. Now, let's see what happens next. 4 hours earlier, Amanda had stood in their walk-in closet, a space larger than her first apartment, running her fingers along rows of designer labels still bearing their tags. Despite the luxury surrounding her like silk walls, she reached for the simplest dress she could find, a plain black sheath, understated, safe. Old survival instincts died hard. "You're doing it again." She turned to find Jong Sik leaning against the doorframe, already dressed in an all-black suit that made him look like beautiful danger personified. His dark hair was slicked back, revealing the intricate tattoos that snaked up his neck, marks of the life he led, the empire he commanded. Even in their home, his presence filled every corner of the room. "Doing what?" Amanda fastened a delicate gold bracelet around her wrist. "Choosing things like you're still counting pennies." He moved toward her with that predatory grace that made her heart skip. "You're married to one of the wealthiest men in Seoul. Stop shopping in your own closet like you're on a budget." His hand slid around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat through the expensive fabric. "I like simple things," she said softly. "I like spoiling you." His lips brushed her neck, sending shivers down her spine. "Indulge me. You indulge me by loving me exactly as I am." His reflection in the mirror showed that rare softness that only she ever witnessed, the crack in the armor that Seoul's underground world would never see. Always. Then the softness hardened back into steel. "You're going to Gangnam Mall today?" "Just some Christmas shopping. I'll only be a couple hours." Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Jong Sik's protectiveness bordered on obsession, a fact she both cherished and occasionally found suffocating. "Take Ho-jin and Minwoo with you." "Baby, I don't need bodyguards to buy presents." His jaw tightened, And suddenly she wasn't looking at her husband anymore. She was looking at the man Seoul's criminal underworld whispered about in fear. Amanda, you know what I am. You know what I do. You know the enemies that creates. His grip on her waist tightened fractionally. You don't leave this penthouse without security. Non-negotiable. The steel in his voice was absolute. This was Jong Sik, underground king of Seoul, speaking, not just the man who held her at night when the nightmares came. She turned in his arms, cupping his face. Okay, I'll take them. The tension drained from his shoulders. Thank you. He checked his watch. Solid platinum, deceptively simple, obscenely expensive. I have a meeting in Gangnam. I'll be back by 7. We have reservations at 8. Where? That dangerous smile again, the one that promised dark things. Surprise. Wear the red dress, the one I can't stop thinking about removing. Heat flooded her face even as she smiled. You're impossible. Only for you. One more kiss, deep, thorough, claiming, before he left her breathless among thousands of dollars worth of unworn clothes. 2 hours later, Amanda walked through Gangnam Luxury Mall with Ho-jin and Minwoo maintaining a careful distance. The mall was a cathedral of excess, all marble floors and crystal chandeliers, every storefront a shrine to wealth. Christmas decorations glittered everywhere, gold and silver, elegant and expensive as everything else in this place. She'd just stepped out of a boutique, bags in hand, when she saw him. John, her ex-husband. The man who'd left her homeless and pregnant. The man who'd drained her bank account and disappeared. The father of the baby she'd lost 2 weeks after he abandoned her. Lost because she couldn't afford food, couldn't afford the stress, couldn't afford to stay alive and keep another life growing inside her. He was leaning against a Louis Vuitton display, laughing with a woman dripping in labels and arrogance. He looked exactly the same. Same cocky smile, same expensive taste funded by other people's money, same entitled swagger that had once made her feel small. Amanda's hands trembled. Shopping bags nearly slipped from her grip. 3 years. She'd thought she was healed, thought the scars had closed over. But seeing him ripped everything open again, the pain, the betrayal, the nights crying in her car, the morning she woke in a pool of blood, losing their child completely alone. She should walk away, turn around, leave, but her feet were rooted to the marble floor. John looked up. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then recognition flashed across his face, followed by shock, then something uglier, pure contempt. He whispered something to the woman beside him, then started walking toward Amanda. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she was frozen, watching her past approach with murder in its smile. Well, well, John's voice was exactly as she remembered, condescending, cruel, designed to make her feel worthless. Amanda, didn't expect to see you here. Thought you'd be at the thrift stores where you belong. She found her voice somewhere deep. John, I have nothing to say to you. Still bitter? He looked her up and down like she was something he'd scraped off his shoe. Though I see you've cleaned up a bit. Found some desperate man to pay your bills. That's always been your talent, hasn't it? Playing victim until some fool takes pity on you. The words landed like physical blows. Ho-jin and Minwoo were moving closer, hands drifting toward their jackets where Amanda knew they kept their weapons. You left me with nothing, Amanda said quietly, hating how her voice shook. You stole everything from me. John laughed, loud, mocking, drawing stares. Stole? Baby, I liberated myself from a parasite. Best decision I ever made. You were always so needy, so pathetic, expecting me to take care of you like you couldn't handle your own life. I was pregnant with your child. Was I supposed to care? His eyes were ice. I told you from the beginning I didn't want kids. You probably got pregnant on purpose, trying to trap me. Thank God I got out when I did. Amanda's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. The woman John had been with approached, linking her arm through his possessively. "Is this her?" she asked, examining Amanda with barely concealed disgust. "The ex you told me about? The one who stalked you?" "Stalked?" Amanda's voice rose. "I never—" "Don't make a scene." John cut her off. "You're embarrassing yourself, as usual." He turned to leave, dismissing her completely, and something inside Amanda shattered. 3 years of rebuilding, 3 years of therapy and healing and learning to believe she deserved love. 3 years of Jong Sik showing her she was worth protecting, all of it crumbling under John's contempt. "You destroyed me," she said, her voice breaking. "I lost everything because of you. Our baby died because—" John spun back, his face twisted with rage. "Don't you dare try to guilt me with that lie." "It's not a lie. I lost our baby because I was starving and homeless and—" "Shut up!" He moved toward her aggressively. Hojin stepped between them instantly, his hand inside his jacket. Minwoo had his phone out, likely already calling Jong Sik. John barely glanced at them. "What? You hired some Asian muscle to make you feel important? How much are you paying these guys to pretend you matter?" "Sir, step back," Hojin said in heavily accented English, his voice deadly calm. "Or what?" John shoved forward. His hand connected with Hojin's chest, trying to push through to Amanda. In the scuffle, John's other hand swung wild, connecting with Amanda's shoulder hard enough to send her stumbling backward. She hit the display stand, crying out as she fell. Ornaments scattering, her bags flying, the world tilting sideways. The mall went silent. Amanda looked up from the floor, blood trickling from where her elbow had split open against the metal edge, her dress torn at the shoulder. John stood over her, his face red with rage, his shoe raised. And that's when it happened. That's when John's $800 Italian leather shoe came down toward her ribs, and Amanda's entire world exploded into pain and golden shards of Christmas ornaments, and the sudden, terrible knowledge that the man she'd once loved enough to create life with wanted to hurt her, wanted to destroy her, was destroying her, right here, in front of everyone. Hojin had John on the ground in 2 seconds, arm twisted behind his back. Minwoo was helping Amanda up, his face pale with fear, not for himself, but for what was coming, because Jong Sik was going to lose his mind. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" Minwoo asked in Korean, then English. "We need to get you out of here." "I'm fine," Amanda whispered, but she wasn't. Her hands shook, her elbow throbbed. But worse was the emotional wound ripped open, bleeding all over her carefully reconstructed life. Security guards rushed over. John's girlfriend was screaming. Other shoppers had their phones out, recording everything. The whole scene was chaos. "Let me go," John shouted, struggling against Hojin's hold. "She's crazy. She attacked me." "Sir, we have video," one of the security guards said, gesturing to the mall cameras. "We saw everything. You assaulted this woman." "She was harassing my boyfriend," the girlfriend shrieked. Amanda's phone rang. Jong Sik's name flashed on the screen. Her hand trembled as she answered. "Hello? Are you hurt?" His voice was eerily calm, which was somehow more terrifying than if he'd been yelling. "I'm okay. Just a scratch." "Don't lie to me, Amanda." Still that terrible calm. "Are you hurt?" "My elbow is bleeding. I fell, but I'm fine. Really. Who touched you?" She closed her eyes, felt tears finally spilling over. "Who touched you?" "My ex-husband, John, but it's okay. Security has him. Put Minwoo on the phone." She handed it over with shaking hands. Watched as Minwoo's expression went from nervous to absolutely terrified as he listened to whatever Jong Sik was saying. He responded in rapid Korean, too fast for her intermediate skills to follow, then handed the phone back. "Baby," she said softly, pleading. "I'm 8 minutes away." His voice was pure ice, pure death. "Don't let him leave. If security tries to release him, tell them who you are. Use my name." "Jong Sik, please don't do anything." He put his hands on you. Each word was a bullet. He hurt you. There is no world where that man walks away without consequences. The line went dead. Amanda looked at Hojin, still holding John to the marble floor. At Minwoo, who'd positioned himself protectively beside her. At John's girlfriend, screaming at security. At the crowd of people watching, recording, whispering. And she felt a cold certainty settle in her stomach. John had no idea what he'd just done. He didn't know that the woman he'd just kicked, the woman he'd destroyed 3 years ago and tried to destroy again today, was protected by the most dangerous man in Seoul. He didn't know that Jong Sik was currently in his motorcade, racing through Gangnam's streets with murder in his heart. He didn't know that in approximately 8 minutes, his entire world was going to end, not with death, but with something far worse. Total destruction. Subscribe to the channel for more Afro-Korean romance stories. Drop a comment telling me what you think is about to happen when Jong Sik arrives. Now, let's see what happens next. Mall security had separated everyone by the time Amanda could breathe properly again. She sat in a cramped security office, an EMT cleaning the scrape on her elbow, while Minwoo stood guard at the door like a statue carved from tension. Hojin was in a separate room giving his statement. John and his girlfriend were in yet another room, their angry voices occasionally piercing through the walls. Amanda's phone buzzed again. Jong Sik. 3rd call in 2 minutes. Her hand still trembled as she answered. I'm okay. Where are they keeping you? His voice cut through her reassurance like a blade through silk. Still that terrible calm. Still that controlled fury that made her more afraid for John than she'd ever been for herself. Security office. 2nd floor, near the... I know where it is. Stay there. Don't move. Don't speak to anyone without a lawyer present. Jong Sik, it's just mall security. Amanda, the way he said her name, soft but absolute, made her throat tighten. I'm 4 minutes away. Do not let them release him. Do you understand me? She closed her eyes, felt tears threatening again. Yes. Good, I love you. The line went dead before she could say it back. The EMT finished bandaging her elbow, murmuring something about how she should see a doctor if it started bleeding through. Amanda barely heard her. She was staring at her phone, at Jong Sik's contact photo, a rare image of him smiling, genuinely smiling, taken on their honeymoon in Jeju Island, before the world knew who she'd married, before reality had fully settled in, before moments like this. Ma'am? Minwoo's voice was gentle. Do you need anything? Water? She shook her head, tried to steady her breathing. Failed. Through the wall, she heard John's voice rising again. This is ridiculous. I barely touched her. She's clearly lying, trying to... Sir, we have multiple camera angles. A mall security guard interrupted. We watched you kick her while she was on the ground. She fell. I was trying to step over her and the footage shows otherwise. Amanda hugged herself, suddenly cold despite the stuffy office. Her simple black dress was torn at the shoulder, blood staining the sleeve. She looked down at her hands, at the gloves she always wore in public now, hiding the massive diamond that screamed wealth and danger and protection, hiding who she'd become, or maybe hiding who she'd always been underneath the poverty John had forced her into. A commotion erupted in the hallway, voices raised in alarm. The security guard who'd been questioning Amanda moments ago rushed out, his radio crackling with urgent Korean she couldn't quite catch. Minwoo's posture shifted. His hand moved to his jacket. Is that... Amanda started. Yes, ma'am. Jong Sik had arrived. The atmosphere in the mall had changed the moment Jong Sik's motorcade pulled into the underground garage. 3 black SUVs with tinted windows arriving in perfect formation. No sirens, no announcement. Just the sudden, oppressive weight of power entering a space. Amanda couldn't see it from the security office, but she could feel it, could hear it in the way conversations in the hallway stopped mid-sentence, could see it in the way Minwoo straightened, relief and fear warring on his face. The office door opened. Hojin entered first, his expression grim, followed by two men Amanda recognized from Jong Sik's inner circle. Then a mall security manager, pale and sweating despite the air conditioning. And then Jong Sik. He filled the doorway in a way that had nothing to do with physical size and everything to do with presence. His all-black suit was immaculate, his hair still perfectly styled, but his eyes were apocalyptic. They swept the room in half a second, cataloging everything before landing on Amanda, on her torn dress, her bandaged elbow, the tears still wet on her cheeks. Something terrible crossed his face, something that made the security manager take an involuntary step backward. Out, Jong Sik said quietly. Not to Amanda, to everyone else. The room emptied in seconds. Even Minwoo and Hojin, who'd die for him, practically fled. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the sudden silence. Jong Sik moved toward her, each step measured, controlled. He knelt in front of her chair, bringing their faces level, and his hands came up to frame her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him in this moment. "Show me," he said softly. Amanda lifted her arm. Let him examine the bandage, the blood seeping through gauze, the tear in her dress. His jaw tightened. A muscle jumped beneath his tattooed neck. "It's not bad," she whispered. "Really, it's just, he kicked you." Not a question, a statement of fact that carried the weight of a death sentence. While you were on the ground, defenseless. "Jong Sik, he put his hands on you." His voice was still soft, still terrifyingly calm. "He hurt you, in public, in my city." "I'm okay." "You're not." His thumbs brushed away her tears with infinite care. "You're crying. You're shaking. You're sitting in a mall security office with blood on your dress because a man I should have killed 3 years ago thought he could touch what's mine." The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her, should have reminded her of John's controlling behavior, his ownership, his abuse. But this was different. This was Jong Sik, who'd spent 2 years earning her trust, who'd never raised his voice to her, never made her feel small, never made her question her worth, who'd proposed with a diamond ring and a promise that she'd never be hungry again, never be abandoned again, never be hurt again. A promise he thought he'd just broken. "I want to see him," Jong Sik said, still in that deadly calm voice. "But first, I need you to tell me everything, not what you think I want to hear, not the version where you protect my feelings. Everything." Amanda's breath hitched. "You know everything. I know you were married before. I know he left you pregnant and penniless. I know you lost the baby." His hands were still gentle on her face, but his eyes had gone cold. "What I don't know is his name, what he looks like, where he's been, or why, in the 3 years we've been together, you never once mentioned you might run into him." Because she'd thought she was over it, thought the past was buried deep enough that it couldn't hurt her anymore, thought she'd healed. She'd been wrong. "His name is John," she said quietly. "John Wellington. He was a financial consultant. We met when I was 23, got married at 25. I thought he loved me. I thought we were building a life together." Jong Sik said nothing, just listened with that terrible patience. "But he was stealing from me the whole time, taking money from my account, running up credit cards in my name, destroying my credit. I didn't realize until it was too late, until I was pregnant and he told me he was leaving." Her voice cracked. Jong Sik's thumbs continued their gentle motion across her cheeks, grounding her. "He took everything," she continued, "drained the joint account, disappeared overnight, left me with $17 and a baby I couldn't afford to feed. I was working 2 jobs, barely sleeping, barely eating, and then—" She couldn't say it. Even now, 3 years later, married to a man who'd kill for her, the words stuck in her throat like broken glass. "You lost the baby," Jong Sik finished softly. I lost the baby. The tears came harder now. I was 12 weeks along. I woke up bleeding, and I was alone, and I couldn't afford the hospital, and by the time I got there, it was too late. They told me it was stress and malnutrition, and I knew it was because of him, because he left me with nothing, because he stole my money, and my future, and my baby's life, and he didn't care. He never cared. Jong Sik pulled her into his chest, letting her sob into his expensive suit. His hand stroked her hair, his other arm wrapped around her waist, holding her together while she fell apart. I'm going to kill him, he said into her hair, not a threat, a simple statement of fact. Amanda pulled back, gripping his lapels. No, please, I can't. He took your child. Jong Sik's voice had gone arctic. He destroyed you, and then today, 3 years later, he put his hands on you again. He kicked you, in my city, while you wear my ring. His hands tightened fractionally on her waist. Give me one reason why he deserves to keep breathing. Because I don't want his blood on your hands. Amanda held his gaze, even though looking into his eyes right now was like staring into an abyss. Because I don't want to visit you in prison. Because I need you here, with me, not locked away because of him. I won't get caught. You might. And even if you don't, I'll know. I'll know that you killed someone for me, and I can't carry that. Jong Sik studied her face for a long moment. She could see the war happening behind his eyes, the underground king who solved problems with violence versus the man who'd promised to give her peace. Then I'll destroy him another way, he finally said. But Amanda, understand this. What happens next? It won't be clean. It won't be merciful. By the time I'm done with John Wellington, he'll wish I'd killed him instead. A chill ran down her spine. Not fear of Jong Sik, fear for John. What are you going to do? Everything. He stood, pulling her gently to her feet. Stay here. Minwoo will bring you home. I'll handle this. I want to be there. No. Jong Sik, no. His tone brooked no argument. You've been hurt enough today. You've seen him enough. I won't let him hurt you again, even if it's just by looking at you. He kissed her forehead, lingering for a moment that felt like goodbye. Then he was moving toward the door, his entire demeanor shifting. The gentle husband disappeared. The underground king emerged. He paused at the threshold, looking back at her one last time. I love you, more than anything. Remember that when you hear what I've done. Then he was gone, and Amanda was left standing in the security office with the terrible knowledge that John Wellington's life as he knew it was about to end. The hallway outside the security offices had transformed into something resembling a war zone command center. Jong Sik's men lined the walls, 12 of them, all in black suits, all radiating lethal competence. Mall security guards hovered nervously at the periphery, unsure whether they were still in charge of anything. 2 uniformed police officers stood near the door to the room where John was being held. They looked young, nervous, like they'd just realized they were standing between a predator and its prey. Jong Sik approached them with measured steps. Hojin flanked his left, another lieutenant named Taeyang on his right. The police officers straightened, hands drifting toward their service weapons in an instinctive gesture they probably didn't even realize they were making. I need to speak with the man who assaulted my wife, Jong Sik said. His voice was conversational, pleasant even, which made it infinitely more terrifying. The older officer, maybe 30, trying hard to project authority he clearly didn't feel, cleared his throat. Sir, we're conducting an investigation. You'll need to wait until... I don't need to do anything, Jong Sik interrupted gently, except speak with the man who put his hands on my wife. You can facilitate that conversation, or you can explain to your captain why you prevented a victim's spouse from exercising his legal rights. We have procedures, and I have lawyers, very expensive lawyers. Would you like me to call them, or would you prefer to step aside and let me have 5 minutes? The officers exchanged glances. The younger one, barely looked old enough to drink, leaned in to whisper something. The older one's expression flickered with recognition. Ah, there it was, the moment they realized who they were dealing with. Jong Sik saw it happen, watched the older officer's face pale, watched his hand fall away from his weapon, watched the careful recalculation happening behind his eyes. 5 minutes, the officer finally said. We'll be right outside. Of course, Jong Sik smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. The door opened. Jong Sik entered alone, leaving his security detail in the hallway. He didn't need them for this. John Wellington sat at a metal table, his designer suit rumpled, his hair disheveled, his face still red with indignation. His girlfriend, or fiancée, or whatever she was, sat beside him, arms crossed, radiating entitlement. They both looked up as Jong Sik entered. John's expression shifted from anger to confusion to something like calculation. "Who the hell are you?" John demanded. "If you're mall management, I want to speak to—" "I'm Amanda's husband," Jong Sik said quietly. The room went dead silent. Jong Sik closed the door behind him with a soft click, moved to the table with that same measured pace, pulled out the chair across from John and sat down, folding his hands on the metal surface. "Let me tell you how this is going to work," he continued in that same conversational tone. "You're going to sit there quietly and listen. You're not going to speak. You're not going to move. You're not going to do anything except absorb every word I'm about to say. Do you understand?" John's mouth opened. Jong Sik's hand moved so fast it was almost invisible. One moment, his hands were folded calmly on the table. The next, his fingers were wrapped around John's throat, slamming him back against the wall behind his chair. The girlfriend screamed. "I said," Jong Sik whispered, his face inches from John's purpling features. "Do you understand?" John managed a strangled nod. Jong Sik released him. John collapsed back into his chair, gasping, hands flying to his throat. The girlfriend started to stand. Jong Sik's gaze swiveled to her, and she froze mid-motion, then slowly sank back down. "Better," Jong Sik said. He returned to his seat, adjusted his cufflinks like he hadn't just choked a man. "Now, where were we? Ah, yes, Amanda." He leaned back, studying John with the detached interest of a scientist examining an insect. "She told me about you," he continued, "about your marriage, about how you stole her money, how you left her pregnant and destitute, how your actions directly caused the death of your unborn child." Each word landed like a hammer blow. "She told me all of this with tears streaming down her face while I cleaned blood from her elbow. Blood that's there because you kicked her, today, in front of witnesses, in my city." John's eyes had gone wide. The girlfriend looked like she might be sick. "Here's what's going to happen," Jong Sik said. "First, you're going to be arrested. Assault and battery caught on multiple cameras. You'll be released on bail, probably tomorrow. Your father will pay for it. Are you listening, John?" John nodded jerkily. "Good, because this is where it gets interesting. By the time you're released, several things will have occurred. 1, your father's company will receive documentation of every fraudulent transaction you've made in the past 5 years, every stolen credit card, every forged signature, every dollar you've embezzled. My accountants are very thorough." The color drained from John's face. 2, Jong Sik continued, "your fiancé." He glanced at the woman. "I assume that's what you are? Given the ring, your fiancé will receive a complete dossier on your activities, including but not limited to your history of theft, your abandonment of Amanda while she was pregnant, and a rather interesting collection of photos from your business trips to Bangkok. My investigators are also very thorough." The girlfriend turned to stare at John, horror dawning in her expression. 3, every client your father's firm has will receive anonymous but well-documented tips about your, let's call them ethical lapses. By the end of the week, You'll have cost your father approximately $40 million in lost contracts. At which point, your father, who I've already spoken with, by the way, will fire you and publicly disown you to save what's left of his reputation. You can't, John started hoarsely. I can. I have. It's done. Jong Sik's voice never rose above conversational. 4. The money you stole from Amanda, every penny with interest, will be returned within 72 hours. Failure to comply will result in criminal charges and a civil suit that will tie you up in court for years. I don't have that kind of money. You'll find it. Liquidate assets. Beg your father before he disowns you. Sell everything you own. I don't care. But you will return what you stole. Jong Sik stood, adjusted his suit jacket, looked down at John with something approaching pity. By the time I'm done with you, John Wellington, you'll have no money, no job, no family, and no future. You'll spend the rest of your life knowing that you had everything and lost it all because you couldn't resist putting your hands on a woman who's worth more than you could ever comprehend. He moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. If you ever, and I mean ever, come within 100 feet of my wife again, I will kill you, slowly, painfully, in a way that ensures you have plenty of time to regret every choice you've ever made. And unlike this conversation, that's not a threat. It's a promise. He opened the door. The 2 police officers practically jumped back. He's all yours, Jong Sik said pleasantly. Please note the bruising on his neck. He became aggressive and attempted to assault me. I defended myself. I'm sure the cameras in this room captured everything. The older officer's eyes widened slightly as he glanced up at the corner of the room, at the camera that hadn't been there 15 minutes ago, now mounted and recording. Jong Sik smiled. Have a pleasant evening, officers. He walked out, Hojin and Taeyang falling into step behind him. His security detail formed up, a wall of black suits moving through the mall like a military operation. They were halfway to the garage when Jong Sik's phone rang. His father-in-law. Well, John's father. Mr. Wellington, Jong Sik answered. I trust you received my documentation. You can't do this. The voice on the other end was tight with barely controlled fury. John is my son. John is a thief and an abuser who cost you $40 million in contracts over the past 4 hours. Would you like to make it $50 million because I can keep going? Silence. I thought. Not, Jong Sik said. Fire him, disown him publicly. Do it within 24 hours, or I'll destroy your company completely. Your choice. He ended the call without waiting for a response. Min Woo approached from the security office wing. Ma'am is asking to go home. Take her. Stay with her until I return. No one gets near her. Understood? Yes, sir. Jong Sik stood in the mall's main atrium for a moment, looking up at the crystal chandeliers, the Christmas decorations, the careful veneer of civilization built on marble and money. Somewhere above him, John Wellington was realizing his life was over, and Jong Sik felt absolutely nothing, no satisfaction, no remorse, just the cold certainty that he'd protected what was his, the way he always would. He pulled out his phone, sent a text to Amanda, coming home soon. I love you. Her response came immediately. I love you too. Please be safe. Safe. She's still worried about him being safe, even now, even after everything. That's why he'd married her. That's why he'd protect her until his last breath. That's why John Wellington would spend the rest of his life wishing Jong Sik had simply killed him instead of leaving him alive to face the ruins of everything he'd built on other people's suffering. Jong Sik walked toward the garage, his security detail flanking him, and didn't look back. Justice, he thought, didn't always require blood. Sometimes it just required power, patience, and a willingness to burn someone's entire world to ashes while they watched. He was very good at all 3. The penthouse was quiet when they arrived home. Amanda had barely spoken during the drive, staring out the window at Seoul's glittering skyline while Min Woo navigated through evening traffic. Her elbow throbbed. Her dress was ruined. Her carefully reconstructed sense of safety felt shattered across marble floors alongside golden Christmas ornaments. Jong Sik was waiting in the foyer when they entered. He must have taken a different route, driven faster, needed to be there when she walked through the door. He dismissed Minwoo with a gesture, then moved toward Amanda with that same careful gentleness he'd shown in the security office. "Come," he said softly, taking her hand. "Let me take care of you." He led her through their home, past the living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Gangnam, past the kitchen where they'd shared morning coffee just hours ago, past the bedroom to the master bathroom. All marble and glass and luxury she still sometimes couldn't believe was hers. Jong Sik started the shower, adjusting the temperature until steam filled the space. Then he turned to her, his tattooed hands moving to the zipper of her ruined dress. "May I?" he asked. She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. He undressed her with infinite care, peeling away the torn fabric, the blood-stained sleeve, the gloves that hid her ring. His expression darkened when he saw the bruise forming on her ribs, a perfect imprint of John's shoe. "I should have killed him," Jong Sik muttered. "I'm glad you didn't." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw something raw in his eyes. "I failed you. I promised you'd be safe, and You can't protect me from random encounters in a mall," Amanda interrupted. "You can't predict the future. And you didn't fail me. You came. You fixed it. You're here now." He closed his eyes, jaw tight. "I should have been there before it happened. You can't be everywhere. I can try." She cupped his face, forcing him to meet her gaze. "I need you to be my husband, not my bodyguard. I need you to trust that I'm strong enough to survive bad things happening. I did it before I met you. I can do it now. You shouldn't have to, but sometimes I will, and when I do, I need to know you'll be there after, not drowning in guilt about what you couldn't prevent." Jong Sik pulled her against his chest, careful of her bruised ribs. "I love you," he said into her hair. "So much it terrifies me. The thought of losing you, of someone hurting you." "I know." She held him tighter. "I know." They stood like that for a long moment, steam swirling around them, until Jong Sik finally pulled back and guided her into the shower. He'd already removed his suit jacket, rolled up his sleeves, not caring that water would ruin his expensive clothes. He washed her hair with gentle fingers, massaging her scalp until some of the tension bled away. Cleaned the blood from her elbow, carefully avoiding the bandage the EMT had applied. Soaped her skin with lavender-scented body wash she loved, his touch reverent, almost worshipful. "What did you do to him?" she asked quietly. "After you left the room." Jong Sik's hands stilled for a moment. "I told you, I destroyed him." "How, exactly?" He resumed washing her back, his touch still gentle, but his voice gone cold. "I contacted his father first, explained that John's actions, both 3 years ago and today, had made him a liability. Provided documentation of his theft, his fraud, his pattern of abuse. Gave his father a choice: fire and disown John publicly within 24 hours, or watch his company collapse under the weight of lost contracts and criminal investigations." Amanda turned to face him. "And?" "He chose his business over his son, as I knew he would." No satisfaction in Jong Sik's tone, just cold pragmatism. "By tomorrow morning, John Wellington will be unemployed and disowned. His trust fund will be frozen pending investigation. Every client his father's firm has will know exactly what kind of man he is." "What about his fiancée?" "I sent her evidence of his activities. The Bangkok photos were particularly illuminating." Jong Sik's jaw tightened. "She called off the engagement 2 hours ago. It's already on social media." Amanda leaned against the shower wall, letting water cascade over her. "He's going to have nothing. He deserves nothing." Jong Sik moved closer, one hand bracing on the wall beside her head. "Amanda, he stole from you. He left you pregnant and starving. He caused you to lose your baby. And today, 3 years later, he kicked you while you were on the ground. If you're asking me to feel sympathy, I'm not. She placed her hand over his heart. I'm asking if you're okay. Because I know you, Jong Sik. I know this kind of calculated destruction isn't something you do lightly. He was quiet for a long moment. I wanted to kill him. When I saw you in that office, saw your torn dress and bloodied elbow, heard what he'd done 3 years ago, I wanted to wrap my hands around his throat and squeeze until there was nothing left. But you didn't. Because you asked me not to. Because you said you couldn't carry that weight. His free hand came up to cup her cheek. So I found another way, a slower way, a way that lets him live with the consequences of his actions every single day for the rest of his miserable life. Is it done? Is it over? Almost. Jong Sik's thumb brushed across her lips. He has 72 hours to return every penny he stole from you with interest. After that, I file criminal charges and civil suits that will bury him for years. Will he pay? He'll find a way. Fear is a powerful motivator. Jong Sik leaned down, resting his forehead against hers. And then it's over. He'll be nothing, less than nothing, and you'll never have to think about him again. Amanda closed her eyes. Thank you. For what? For protecting me. For not making me feel weak for needing protection. For being exactly who you are. He kissed her then, slow and deep and gentle, water streaming over both of them, washing away blood and trauma and the ghost of a man who'd tried to break her twice and failed both times. By the next morning, John Wellington's destruction had become public spectacle. Amanda watched it unfold from the safety of their penthouse, Jong Sik beside her on the couch, his arm around her shoulders. First came the announcement from Wellington and Associates. Effective immediately, John Wellington has been terminated from his position and removed from all company operations. Wellington and Associates does not condone theft, fraud, or any form of personal misconduct. Then his father's statement, colder and more brutal. I am deeply disappointed in my son's actions and choices. Effective today, John Wellington is no longer part of this family or its financial holdings. We will cooperate fully with any investigations. Social media exploded. John's ex-fiancée had posted the evidence Jong Sik sent her, screenshots of messages, photos from Bangkok that told a story John couldn't deny. Her caption was simple, but devastating. I almost married a monster. To his ex-wife who tried to warn me years ago. I'm sorry I didn't listen. That post went viral. Within hours, people were connecting dots, finding Amanda's story buried in old forums where she'd once sought advice about leaving an abusive marriage, finding records of John's theft, his abandoned wife, his pattern of destruction. By noon, John had issued a public apology, clearly written by lawyers, forced and hollow. I deeply regret my past actions and the harm I've caused. I am seeking help and taking responsibility for my behavior. I apologize to those I've hurt, especially my ex-wife. Amanda read it twice, felt nothing. He doesn't mean it, she said. Of course not. Jong Sik pressed a kiss to her temple. But it's on record now, part of his permanent digital footprint. Every future employer, every potential partner, every person who Googles his name will see it. Is that enough? For you? Jong Sik considered. It's what you can live with. That makes it enough for me. 3 days later, a wire transfer hit Amanda's account. Every dollar John had stolen, plus 3 years of compound interest, plus an additional sum that could only be described as pain and suffering damages. The IE total was staggering. Amanda stared at the bank notification on her phone. He actually paid. I told you he would. Jong Sik was in the kitchen making coffee, seemingly unconcerned. Fear is very motivating. What do I do with it? She'd never had this much money before meeting Jong Sik, never imagined having this much that was solely hers, earned through suffering, returned through justice. Jong Sik set down his coffee cup, pulled something from his suit pocket, an envelope, thick and official-looking. "I have a suggestion." Christmas Eve arrived wrapped in snow and streetlights. Their penthouse glowed with warm light, a small decorated tree in the corner that Amanda had insisted on, despite the hired decorator's elaborate plans. She preferred simple, even now, maybe especially now. Jong Sik found her standing at the window, watching Seoul sparkle under fresh snow. She wore the red dress he'd requested, silk and elegant, the one that made his breath catch. But her expression was distant, contemplative. "What are you thinking about?" He moved behind her, arms circling her waist. How different everything is from a year ago, 5 years ago. She leaned back against his chest. "I used to spend Christmas alone in a studio apartment, eating instant ramen, wondering if I'd ever feel safe again. And now? Now I'm married to the most dangerous man in Seoul, wearing a dress that costs more than my old apartment's rent, living in a penthouse I still sometimes can't believe is real." "Having regrets?" She turned in his arms. "Not a single one." She touched his face, tracing the line of his jaw. "You gave me safety. You gave me protection. But more than that, you gave me back my ability to trust, to love, to believe I deserved good things." "You deserve everything," Jong Sik kissed her softly, "which is why I have something for you." He handed her the envelope from days ago. Amanda opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a deed for a building in Gangnam, 5 stories, prime location, recently renovated. "I don't understand," she whispered. "You told me once you wished you could help other women who'd been through what you experienced, women who'd been abandoned, abused, left with nothing." Jong Sik's hands covered hers. "This is your chance. The money John returned, use it to open a foundation, a shelter, a place where women can rebuild their lives." Tears spilled down Amanda's cheeks. "Jong Sik, I've already had my lawyers establish the nonprofit framework. You just need to name it and decide what programs you want to offer. Job training, legal aid, childcare, whatever you envision." He wiped her tears away gently. "Turn your pain into power. Help others the way you wish someone had helped you." "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll do it. Say you'll take everything John tried to destroy and transform it into something beautiful." She kissed him instead, deep and grateful and full of love for this complicated, dangerous, impossibly gentle man who'd given her more than safety, who'd given her purpose. 6 months later, the Second Chances Foundation opened its doors on a warm June morning. The building was beautiful, modern but welcoming, designed to feel safe rather than institutional. 5 floors of hope, emergency shelter on the first floor, job training on the second, legal services on the third, childcare on the fourth, and administrative offices on the fifth. Amanda stood in the lobby greeting their first residents, 3 women and their children, all escaping situations that mirrored her own past. She saw herself in their eyes, the fear, the exhaustion, the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, this time things would be different. "Welcome," she told them. "You're safe here. Whatever you need, we'll help you find it." Jong Sik watched from the back of the room, pride evident on his usually stoic face. His security detail blended into the background, always present, always, protecting, but never intrusive. Later that evening, after the opening celebration, after the last volunteer had gone home, Amanda sat at her new desk in the 5th floor office. The view overlooked Gangnam, the city lights stretching endlessly. So different from her old studio apartment, so different from the mall floor where John had kicked her and tried to break her again. Her computer pinged. New email from John, Wellington, redacted. Subject, I'm sorry. She hovered over it for a moment, knew she should delete it without reading, knew nothing John could say would matter anymore. But curiosity won. Amanda, I saw the news about your foundation. I know I have no right to contact you. I know my apology means nothing after everything I've done, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I'm in therapy now. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. I've lost everything, my job, my family, my reputation, and I finally understand what I put you through. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that you won. You survived. You built something beautiful out of the ashes I left you in, and I'm genuinely happy for you. I hope you never have to think about me again. Amanda read it twice, felt the old pain stir, then settle, then fade. She hit delete, didn't respond. Because John was right about one thing, she'd won. Not by responding to his apology, not by offering forgiveness he didn't deserve, but by building a life so full of purpose and love and safety that he'd become irrelevant. Just a footnote in a story that was no longer about survival. It was about thriving. Her phone buzzed. Jong Sik, coming home soon. Proud of you. Love you. Amanda smiled, closed her laptop, looked around her office, at the framed photos of the women they'd already helped, at the plans for expansion, at the life she'd built from ruins. She texted back, "Love you too. I'll be home soon." Home. She had one now, had a husband who protected her without diminishing her, had a foundation that would help hundreds of women find their own homes, their own safety, their own second chances. John Wellington had tried to break her twice. Both times, he'd failed. And now, standing in an office she'd built with the very money he'd stolen from her, Amanda realized something profound. She wasn't grateful to Jong Sik for saving her. She was grateful to herself for surviving long enough to be found. The rest, the love, the protection, the justice, that was just proof that she'd always deserved more than John had convinced her she was worth. She turned off the lights, locked the office, headed home to the man who'd helped her remember she was worth protecting, and she never thought about John Wellington again. Behind her, in the deleted folder of her email, his message sat unread by anyone who mattered, because some people deserve to be forgotten, and some people deserve to build empires from ashes. Amanda had always been the latter. She'd just needed to remember.